Welcome back. You're watching our continuing conversations here at Davos 2025. A lot of the conversations, of course, focus on President Trump. They also focus on what his policies could mean potentially for inflation and what that could lead the Fed to do or not do. The conversations, of course, also around technology and technology use by banks. Joining us now is the chairperson of India's largest bank, State Bank of India, Mr. CS Setty. Always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Let's get the bread and butter stuff out of the way, sir. As I pointed out, conversations around inflation, interest rates in the US. But what about back home? The MPC meets in February. Do you expect a rate cut?
Broadly, I think our house view is that there will be a rate cut in February. There are some important measures the regulator has taken of late, particularly to infuse additional liquidity.
Has it helped?
Particularly daily VRR definitely had sent signal to the market that the liquidity support from the central bank will always be available. We are able to see the change in the market perception in terms of the liquidity availability. While the system liquidity is still tight and is deficit, but the availability on tap liquidity from RBI definitely is a good indicator. But I think our view is that the way the global economy, particularly in the developed economies, is behaving, and the rate cut seems to be imminent in February.
A rate cut is imminent in February. You talked about tight liquidity, sir. Let me also ask you about offtake at this point in time. What is the indication that you're getting? Because there has been visible signs of a slowdown across different sectors, particularly on the consumption side. What are you seeing at this point?
So there seems to be some convergence in the credit growth towards the deposit growth. If you see, I think we've been talking about lower deposit growth rate, not in tandem with the credit growth. And I mentioned earlier also, I think there will be some equilibrium sometime. And the December numbers indicate that there seems to be some convergence towards the deposit growth rate. I think broadly they are at the 12% rate, both deposits as well as loans. But you're right, I think the loan growth predominantly continues to be personal loans. While we have some degrowth in the at the system level, of course, I can't talk about SBI because our numbers are due sometime in first week of February. But I think the results, whatever we have seen from the banking system so far, indicates that there is some slowness on the unsecured personal loans, but I think home loans are doing pretty well in the sense the growth rate in advances is still coming from the retail segment, whether it is a personal retail, or SME, or agriculture. Corporate is still, I think, slower on that.
Still slower? You were feeling confident when we last spoke about a pickup in private Capex. It's still elusive?
Private Capex is happening in only certain sectors. I think the core sector, as I mentioned earlier, still is not investing as much as we have expected them to. So particularly on the steel, cement, while the capacity utilization have reached 75%. I think they're all looking at how the external environment improves, or how it is going to behave, particularly on the trade tariff in the new presidency in the US, how it is going to impact the overall global economy. I think everybody seems to be watchful on that front.
So it continues to be wait and watch as far as large private Capex is concerned at this point in time.
Particularly on the core.
In the core sector, let me ask you about the unsecured side, sir, because that has been, of course, a red flag that the RBI has raised. I was having a conversation with some bankers. The possibility of slippages moving from the unsecured side to the secure side, is that something that you're watchful of? Are you concerned also?
Even on the overall level also, I think it has not reached a stage where we need to really get alarmed about it. Obviously, the proactive steps what RBI has taken has reduced the unsecured personal loan, obviously. But I don't see the contagion effect coming in from unsecured to secured. Obviously, the underwriting standards have to improve. One great systemic improvement, which we mentioned earlier also in terms of the frequent updation of the credit history. Now, from 15th January onwards, the reporting to the credit information companies is moving to a fortnightly basis, which means that the frequent updation will help system to understand what is the leverage at the individual level, so that I think the multiple lending to the same individual or individual families will be avoided.
Let's talk about possible monetization plans in 2025 or beyond. The stake that you have as far as Yes Bank is concerned, any plans on that? Any thoughts at this point in time?
Not at this time.
No?
No developments which I can really share with you.
So nothing on the anvil, nothing imminent?
Nothing on the anvil.
Nothing on the anvil. What about monetizing YONO? And I know I've asked you this question previously as well. Do you feel more ready in an environment that we are in today where everybody is betting on digitization and AI? Any plans to monetize YONO?
The more than monetizing, we would like to leverage the YONO app. I think the great potential the app itself has to strengthen our own ability to give the services to our customers. We are focusing on that first, and probably the monetization or decoupling from our own system will come
happen later.
But in the YONO 2.0, we are trying to build elements where some of the elements can be utilized for the overall banking system. So if not fully on the app basis, I think more in terms of the elements of YONO could be used elsewhere. You're spending a lot of your time here in Davos focusing on what's happening in AI. Yeah.
What's the plan on that front as far as SBI is concerned in terms of adoption?
I think, one thing which is coming out clearly that the new technology frontier, in the last 2 years we've been talking about AI, and it's time for us to implement AI and use cases are to be identified. We have done that basic homework. And we have identified essentially in terms of personalizing our customer offerings could be one of the major use case. We are building that into the YONO itself. The other one is that we are strengthening our risk management practices, where particularly in the customer protection, where AI can be deployed. There's a humongous amount of discussion at the Davos today. I think AI is being talked about, AI at scale, both in terms of productivity and more importantly, I think one element which attracted my attention in terms of the change management, what we need to do among the employees when we are rolling out AI in a big way. I think these are some of the takeaways for me.
So any thoughts on being able to incorporate some of that at SBI?
Obviously, I think we have already started doing that. And now we will be scaling it up at the enterprise level.
So let me end then by asking you, you've got a new governor at the Reserve Bank. You've already told us that you expect a rate cut from the MPC in February. What else do you believe is the need of the hour today, given the external environment as well as the domestic environment in terms of additional measures, especially as far as liquidity is concerned?
No, I think central bank is, in fact, I shared my thoughts with the governor also. Particularly the signaling what had happened through the daily VRRs and also the swaps which they're planning, I think is a good indicator of the support what central bank is providing to the banking system. There are no complaints on that front.
Okay, Mr. Setty, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for joining us. That is India's largest banker joining us here in Davos. A rate cut is the call there from SBI in February. We'll have to wait to see whether the MPC delivers, but more importantly, SBI focusing on more digital adoption, AI-led development and change for India's largest bank as well. We will take a break. We'll be joined by the Chief Minister of Telangana right after this. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment.
Okay, all right, Shereen, thank you very much for that. In fact, not going into the break, as